world. And why these modern spiritual teachings just amount to a lot of frustration. Because they're promising you something in the future that you already have in the present. And they're knowledge averse. The modern spiritual world is incredibly anti-intellectual. They're all about feelings and experience and so forth and so on. And they don't want to hear that there's something they don't know. They think that, oh, the mind needs to be what? Killed. The ego needs to be destroyed. And then your problems are going to go away. Well, that's a great theory, but has your mind ever stopped thinking? Has your ego ever gone away? No, it hasn't. There's nothing wrong with your mind or your ego. It's just what the content of your thoughts is a problem. Understand? The thoughts themselves, they're value neutral, but the content of those thoughts bother you. And there's no contradiction between who you are, the ever-free conscious self that you are, and your thoughts, is there? Because you're present, aware, and conscious when you're having thoughts, good or bad, aren't you? Isn't that right? There's no contradiction. So by eliminating my thoughts, I don't eliminate me. Do I? Because I'm present. Think about it. Look at your own experience. And Vedanta is just an analysis of experience. That's all it is. When an object appears in you, let's say a thought, an experience. An experience is consciousness, me, plus the thought that's appearing in me at the moment. When a thought appears in me, do I appear simultaneously with that thought? Or am I present before the thought comes? That's correct. The answer is yes. You can nod your head up and down. The answer is yes. You're present what? The thought, I'm here, and then the thought appears. Now, the thought has a certain length. It has a certain duration. It exists for a certain duration. And that's my experience, whatever the thought is. The sex thought, the money thought, the food thought, the wife thought, the kid thought, the dog thought, the satsang thought, the enlightenment thought, whatever it is. It lasts for a period of time. And do I modify when that thought happens? In other words, does my awareness actually change when the thought appears? It's a tough question because it seems to sometimes. If I identify with the substance, in other words, the reflected awareness that appears as my mind, yes, it seems as if I am changing when the thought changes. But actually, you're right. You don't change when a thought is passing through you. Now, when the thought disappears, do you disappear? No, you remain, huh? And when the next thought comes, have you been contaminated by that previous thought, or do you see that second thought as clearly as you saw the first thought? You haven't been contaminated, have you? Which shows what? That you, consciousness existence, is unaffected by what? By your mind. Your feelings, your thoughts, the objects, the experiences, the emotions, and so forth that present themselves to you. That's what we mean by freedom. So here I am. I actually am free, but I don't feel free. Why? Because I identify myself with the thoughts and feelings, with the experiences, the thoughts and feelings that keep appearing in me. I don't identify with the knower or the witness of those thoughts. Now, which means what? As I said earlier, I've got an ignorance problem, not an experience problem. Now, for ignorance, how do I get rid of ignorance? Simple. I need knowledge. Action doesn't remove ignorance. Action's in harmony with ignorance. In other words, I'm ignorant of my wholeness and completeness, therefore I do actions to get whole and complete. So the more actions I do, the more my sense of incompleteness is reinforced, isn't it? So action isn't going to take care of my ignorance, but knowledge takes care of my ignorance. Now for knowledge, this is very tricky. I need a means of knowledge. Knowledge just doesn't happen on its own. For you to see me here, you need eyes. For you to feel what I'm feeling, you need what? Emotions. For you to understand what I'm saying, you need an intellect. Those are means for these three basic levels of experience: physical experience, emotional experience, and intellectual experience. They all have means, appropriate means that we've been supplied by the universe or God or the cosmos or whatever. Never mind, we won't get into that right now. But the problem with me, consciousness, existence, consciousness, is what? What's the problem with that? As far as the known means of knowledge, the means of knowledge that are at my disposal right now. Yourself cannot be objectified. You cannot try right now to take yourself, your consciousness, your existence, and turn it into an object and observe it. Can you do that? Can you? No, you can't. That's correct. You cannot. Yourself can never be made into an object. There's not another self behind it watching it and another self behind it watching it and so forth and so on, ad infinitum, ad nauseum. The self is the part of you that doesn't change, that's always present and is totally unaffected by whatever happens. And that can never be an object. So the means of knowledge that I've been given by existence is what? Inadequate. Perception and inference, in other words. These are the two means that I have at my disposal. I can perceive things and I can infer things based upon perceptions. And those are both valid means of knowledge for objects. However, they're invalid means of knowledge for the subject, the self, consciousness, or the self, existence. Ta-da!